Hey now, and welcome to episode 33 of the Help Find the Others podcast. If you've been here all along, well, welcome back. But if this is your first time listening to us, well, then welcome. I'm your host, Ruben, and also on the line is my co-host, Stan. What's up, buddy?
Nothing much, man. How you doing?
Pretty good. So, I enjoyed this episode with Will. I thought there were times where I forgot that I was talking to an 18-year-old.
I was just about to say that. It's crazy how the ideas that we're discussing span all those different age groups, you know? You got the older generation and yourself, the middle between the 18 and your age, and then him. And so we're all kind of on the same wavelength. It was crazy.
Yeah. And, I do, I think back to myself. I mean, I was such a jackass when I was 18. Like, I couldn't imagine being on a podcast and sounding as mature and
that too.
As wise as he seems. I think that was really great, really, really refreshing for me, to talk to the younger end of our psychedelic community and stuff like that. But so without any further ado, I hope you guys enjoy Will. So Will, thanks for coming on, man, and reaching out and coming on the podcast. It's a really pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm glad you guys answered. I definitely didn't think you guys were going to answer. I've been kind of having a hard time finding a psychedelic community where I am. So it's nice to talk to some like-minded people for sure. Yeah.
I mean, and, for anyone listening, I mean, I check every email and it might take me a week or two to get around to remembering I got to write that guy back. But for the most part, I write everyone back. And also, anyone who writes wanting to be on the podcast, I'm pretty sure everyone that's emailed us, at helpfindtheothers@protonmail.com. I think pretty much everyone that's emailed us trying to come on the podcast, we've gotten on, or at least, will be getting on. So, no need to thank me for responding. It's thank you for reaching out. And I think I told you too, when I talked to you earlier, that it's interesting that it comes in waves, and that definitely influenced by the more energy that Stan and I put into recording and trying to improve the channel and everything. Mm-hmm. But it's like you were the first one to email in a month maybe, and then it's 3 other people email in the same week as you, and it seems to go like that. It's pretty interesting to watch.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm just that's really cool that you're opening it up for people to come and talk about this stuff, because I think people, it's really nice to go out and publicly talk about it. It's hard when you trip and have all these crazy ideas about what the world could be like and you can't tell anyone about it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's what it's all about, between this podcast and the guests and our Discord server. Help Find the Others as a community. It's not just Stan and I, blabbing about stuff. I mean, we're on episode 33, and if there wasn't any guests, I mean, we'd be on episode 5 or something,
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But I can go into some of what the wilderness therapy experience was like and how that kind of started, if you guys want.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Let's start with that experience, because I wanted to hear more about that.
Okay. Well, so I have somewhat of a traumatic childhood, nothing super crazy, but I had my dad was an alcoholic, and I just went through some hard stuff as a kid. So when I was about 15, I started lashing out, smoking weed. I ran away. So my parents, or my mom, gave me a decision of what I want to do. So I decided to go to this wilderness therapy program where you just meditate every day and you do yoga every day, and yeah, you just hike all the time and learn how to bow drill, and
Sounds ideal.
yeah, you learn how to build shelters, and like you learn about yourself too. You do a lot of work with talking about how you're feeling. Like pretty much anytime you're feeling something, you call a group meeting, and it's not as cheesy as it sounds. It's kind of like a tribal kind of thing. Like you have chants and stuff, and we would like call like a chant or something, and everybody would get together and you'd say how you feel, and somebody would reflect it back to you, and that just like was a very psychedelic experience, because just being with nature, like pretty much just fell in love with nature and fell in love with hiking. And yeah, if you guys want to ask me some questions about that, I could definitely answer some.
Yeah, like what I guess my first question is like how I can't remember if you just said it there, but how long was this experience, and was it nonstop, or was there a break in between or anything like that?
There were no breaks. It was like, so you pretty much, I got there, I went to Utah, and how it went down was I was there for 9 weeks. 9 weeks, the entire time outside. I didn't go inside once except for when we drove into the van into different areas into the wilderness. But when I first got there, I was in Utah, and I just like, they drove me out on this Jeep into the middle of nowhere, and there was like this whole crew of like people that had dirt all over their faces. They looked like super grimy, and I couldn't talk to any of them. They were like, they just looked like these super gnarly kids, and I was like, holy shit, where am I? Like, oh my God. And all the guides were like super gnarly, like just built ass guys with like long hair, looked like hippie shaman kind of guys. And so I was like, this is going to be a for real experience for sure. And they don't even give you a backpack when you get there. You have to put everything you have in a tarp and like tie it in this certain way and carry it around with these straps. So it's definitely not easy. They totally break you down, take all your clothes and everything. And the next day I started meditating, doing yoga, integrating into the group, and there was like a ceremony that I did for the group where like it was like this super symbolic ceremony where I was like at the bottom of this hill, and I walked up, and like all the people in the group were like saying what they wanted me to gain from the experience.
Wow, that's that's amazing. So there were kids already in the course when you started, or did you start with like some kids that were newbies too, or?
Yeah, there were already kids in the group. There were kids that had been there like 3 months in the woods. Like their parents were like, you're gonna be out there until you figure your shit out. Like that place is definitely for real. Like it pretty much breaks anyone, and it sounds super gnarly and maybe scary, but the people there, like I can't express enough how loving and inviting they were to me, and like they showed me a lot about how to be just a nice person in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know you said you're 18, right?
Yep. This whole thing happened when I was 15 years old.
Oh, okay. So were you one of the younger kids, or is that kind of the age group that they shoot for?
Yeah, it's like 15 to 18. They do like child programs pretty much like what I was in, and then they have like young adult programs for like 20-year-olds and up, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the really cool things that they teach there is just mindfulness and being in the moment. And that's like pretty much everything they taught me there was like perfect for tripping. Like they just like primed me for tripping, because you meditate every single day. Your breath, you work on your breath. Like if there's tension in the group, everybody stops and takes 3 deep breaths and like, just like works their shit out. Like there's no secrecy, there's no hiding anything. It's a very like open program.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
And like did did kids have stories where you felt like, oh man, like I don't have it as bad, or was everyone kind of coming from the same, like needed the same things out of it?
Yeah, there were some really it was pretty intense. So there was a point in my group where the group got too big, so we had to split up and go into different groups. And since I had been there the longest, I became the leader of the group. So I pretty much had like, I don't remember how many it was, but it was like 6 or 7 people depending on me to like plan things, and like just like I had to like pretty much lead the group with the help of the guides also. And there were kids that had like Xanax. Like there was a kid there who was like pretty much withdrawing from Xanax addiction, and there was kids there who had almost split personality disorder. So I definitely got really close and personal with some people who were going through some really, really heavy shit.
Yeah.
It was really profound to be able to help them, because I learned a lot, and I got to a place where I was able to like help them along the way into like leaving that place, because that's kind of where we were all kind of trying to go.
Yeah. Have you been able to keep in contact with anyone? I mean, did you make any, friends out of it, or?
Yeah, I've kept in contact with a few friends, but I've never gotten a chance to see them. I actually moved to Durango, where the like thing is based out of, and I was like walking down the road the other day, and I saw one of the medics who helped me, and it was really cool talking to him. Yeah. But I know for the other people, it's changed them a lot also.
Oh, I imagine. I mean, I can't think of how, someone could go through that and then just like, 9 weeks is up and be like, whew, thank God that's over, and just go back to being the way you were,
Yeah, there's no way. Well, I remember when I got out, I like looked in the mirror. I was like, it felt so weird to be in a gas station. I was like, there's a ceiling over my head. Like, what's going on right now? Yeah. It was so weird. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine like fluorescent lights were like blinding once you got underneath them again.
And you never really get a good look at your face the whole time. So like, I looked at my face, and it was like the first time I'd gotten like a full look at myself, and I was like, damn, I'm dirty. I had dirt all over myself. I was like so dirty.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, well, when we talked before, you had said that, you coming back, back into society, that it felt, the same as like after a trip, right?
Yeah, no, it was like more crazy than a trip. Like it was like on the same level of like your first trip, like the next day, like your first really profound trip, like where everything changes and you go outside and you just look around and you're like, man, I feel so different. Like it felt like that, like even more, because I'd just been out in the woods and like I hadn't eaten any processed food or anything. Like it was like all super healthy. So like, and like also with the therapeutic stuff, because we were working on our emotions so much and like expressing ourselves, like this culture doesn't accept that in any way. Like you're not really encouraged to express your emotions. So that was a really hard thing for me, because when you were there, you were encouraged to be 100% your authentic self, not to hold anything back. And when I got back into society, I realized that I had to hold a lot back, and that was pretty hard. But I got through it, and it's kind of like, I don't know, like this mindset that you have to have. It's kind of weird. I don't know. After coming out of that, it was kind of a weird thing, just like having this super emotional therapeutic mindset and then seeing everybody like super fucked up and like depressed. It was just kind of hard, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, at least in my generation, because I'm around a lot of teenagers, and I feel like a lot of teenagers are going through hard times in this day and age.
Yeah. Well, and like, the day after a trip or whatever, you can have a feeling when you're among normies or whatever, of just, like, oh, you guys don't know, you don't even know, and I imagine that's even more when you've been 9 weeks, in the bush, and then you're walking around Walmart or something, I would just be in my head like, oh, you guys don't even know what's up,
Yeah, and one of the things that I've like learned in the last couple months is that nobody knows. That's one of the things that mushrooms taught me for sure. And I'm sure you guys have had that realization too. And that's definitely like you kind of build up a spiritual ego, but it's almost hard not to at times. But the mushroom has almost taught me a lot to like break down that spiritual ego and just be humble and equal with everyone, and like accept that everybody's in different places in their lives. So yeah, I've tried to not have that outlook as much, but it was definitely hard not to have that feeling.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, like, well, like you said, that our culture and our society doesn't respect any of those values that you gain from that experience, like certain people do here and there, and certain people would be like, oh, that experience is cool, but they would never do it themselves. And it's interesting though, that like that therapy helps, 15-year-olds that are maybe a little wayward, get back on track and be productive in society, and it's just kind of interesting that it has that effect, I also think it's interesting that they only do those kind of things for like troubled youth, whether it's 15-year-olds or 20-year-olds, where it's like, I know a lot of 40-year-olds that need to have that experience too,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to ask, you brought up some people with borderline personality disorder and these clinically diagnosis issues, and did their problems get better just as well as the misbehaving people?
Yeah, 100%. I'm not gonna say his name because I don't know if he wants to be. I don't know if he wants that, but he was there for 3 months, and I know he was like pretty much on the edge of borderline personality disorder. And he was a kid from Atlanta, and he had never went camping once, and his parents threw him out there in the woods, and he said he was completely terrified the whole time for the first couple weeks. And it's really the hero's journey. You pretty much you die and get rebirth. That's pretty much like what happens. Like, and that's pretty much what happened to him. It sounded like he like just went through a whole bunch of like shit. Like, it's really not easy. You cry and you scream and you curse and you freak out, and they let you do that. They just let you get everything out. Like, I remember one time we were all hucking rocks off a cliff, like screaming things that we like never had said to anyone, and they like allow you to do that, and that's kind of like the death process. And then you kind of like you come out of that just a completely new person. And I remember when I'd gotten there, he had like started the process of being a new person, and he was like my leader when I first got there, and I learned from him how to be a leader when I became a leader. So that was like another really cool thing, is you learn how to be a mentor and help people on their spiritual journeys also. And that this was somebody who was on the verge of borderline personality disorder, like had some super fucked up shit going on, that and I think it was more the natural world than anything that changes it. Just being around nature and trekking through nature for 6 hours, like upwards of 6 hours every day, is definitely like you get really close with nature, and you kind of forget all of those societal things that make you such a miserable person, I think.
Well, it's just crazy because, you go to a doctor with an issue anywhere along those lines, and there's never really a discussion about going out in nature, as the cure.
Yeah. It's crazy that can help so much, that just going outside can help so much.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been preaching that,
Yeah.
for a while now, and I think I mean, it's like you said, it's the hero's journey, and I've talked about developing some sort of nature immersion center, but using psychedelics.
That's what I think would help so much.
Yeah. Well, and I think, much like I mentioned in the video I just put out, that, the lessons we learn on psychedelics and by going through that hero's journey with psychedelics, it mirrors life experience and lessons from that, but it condenses it down and it makes it this super intense moment in time. But you learn the same lessons. So it's kind of like, you can do 9 weeks, with intense therapy like that, or, possibly it could work and have the same effect by having,
a big psychedelic trip.
Right. 8 hours immersed in nature, just with under the influence of a psychedelic, but I mean, I guess, you're not adding in the whole, having to make your own shelter and
Yeah,
live off the land part, but which I think is a important aspect of what you went through as well. I think a big thing that needs to happen for kids that were in the position of the kids you were with and yourself is gaining confidence, and I think having to live off the land and provide for yourself and learn how and stuff like that, that's a big confidence builder, and I think that's one of the most therapeutic parts of that whole experience you went through.
definitely. Yeah. I just think about, like, what if they did that with people who went to prison? Like, I bet you a bunch of people, like, I don't know if that's probably not possible, but if there was some way that we could get some, like, convicts out in the woods and then put them out there for a long time at the end, give them some mushrooms, and I feel like that could be a really, like, good way to, like, stop people from coming back into prison and, like, break the cycle of misery in a lot of people's lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So, okay, so that was when you were 15. Now I know from your YouTube channel and stuff like that, and our talks, you're very experienced with psychedelics. Was that, were you getting into that before you went there, or is that a part of your life that has come about after that experience?
Well, no, I hadn't done any psychedelics before I went to wilderness therapy. And after wilderness therapy, I was sober for a really, really long time, just because I was pretty young and I just felt like it wasn't probably the smartest idea to be smoking weed or doing anything like that. But when I turned 17, I started smoking weed again a little bit. And I had a friend, and he gave me mushrooms for the first time, and it was a super beautiful experience, that was really, really hard to understand and super alien. And I think, like, one of the tragedies, at least in my experiences, is that I didn't have any really education before going into them. Mm-hmm. And that's what kind of wrecked me on my second trip, because I took another dose like a couple days after that. And it wasn't like a traumatic thing. Like, I definitely learned from it, but I had a terrible experience on mushrooms after that, because I was kind of taking them in like a party kind of way. And I pretty much just learned that mushrooms are a teacher and definitely not something to be fucked around with in any way. So I didn't mess with them for a long time after that. And just in the last maybe 6 or 8 months, I did acid a handful of times, ranging from, like, I don't know how much it was, but like from 1 tab to 5 tabs, or 4.5 tabs, sorry. And after that, I did a few heroic dose experiences going off of Terrence McKenna and what he has said.
Mhm.
And I did a few DMT experiences too, and that's kind of solidified into me just committing to this spiritual path and understanding the reality around me. And I had one experience on salvia where I pretty much completely left my body, and that pretty much proved to me that I am not a part of my body in any way. Like I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's my chakras or something. Like there's a soul inside of me that isn't my body. And that realization was really crazy. And just going back to like all my wilderness therapy experiences, like hearing about shamans and all that kind of thing, like it just like really like it felt like I went through some kind of shamanistic experience with the guides that I had, because they taught me a lot about just everything in the world, like a shaman would, pretty much like everything about the natural world and about spirituality and stuff. And yeah, it just all this whole path I've been down since wilderness therapy has just been like really mind-blowing, and keeps opening up into a new beautiful spiritual um, world of questions that I have to answer. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's amazing at your age that you've come to, I didn't make that realization with psychedelics until I was, 30. So, so to have that at this point, I mean, props, man. That's you're ahead of the game. That's pretty awesome. I'm really glad to hear how you're using these tools and what your goal is with them.
Yeah, I think just like when I said education, one of the things that is in the last 6 or 8 months helped a lot is education, like from Terrence McKenna and like Psych Substance and just people on YouTube. Like that is definitely one of the things that has changed psychedelics for me a lot, is like the idea of setting an intention, having it be like a real therapeutic thing that you're trying to accomplish. That
Yeah.
that like, because the first time I did mushrooms, I never had that in my mind, and it was a crazy experience, but I can't really grasp anything from that because I didn't have an intention and I didn't really think about it. And that's like one of the things that has definitely changed the game for me in the last 6 or 8 months.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I've talked about it before. It's like that's what's awesome about this time, to be alive and to be a psychonaut, and being able to do research like that and find out who, when I first discovered mushrooms, the only person who told me anything about it was the guy selling them to me, and like to be able to look up Terrence McKenna and the people you mentioned, like that's so awesome for teenagers now that, you can, yeah, be more knowledgeable on what you're putting in your body and why. And it's great to hear, that from you. So your experience with salvia, was that smoking it or chewing it?
It was actually both. You
Nice.
guys had Tonight Dimension on, and
Mhm.
he inspired me to try quitting it. And I had smoked salvia one time before, and it was not much really happened. Like the floor split open a little bit, and it was just a really scary experience for the most part. Like nothing really that crazy happened, but it freaked me out for sure. But I wanted to get back into it just because I knew that there was something for me in it. So before it, I like put a whole bunch of intention into it. Like I went out into the woods and I got like a rock to put the salvia on, and like a bunch of flowers and like offerings to the salvia being, because they say it's like a woman or something. Because I
Yeah.
really didn't want to piss this thing off at all. And so I started quitting, and it was a really hard thing to do. I didn't think it would be that hard. I chewed it for like 20 minutes, 2 times, I'm pretty sure, and got some slight effects. And I was just really curious to see what smoking it did again, because I had heard some stories of people using salvia, smoking it in a therapeutic way, which kind of seemed insane to me. I can't believe people do that, but I heard this podcast about people doing that, like smoking salvia in a therapeutic way. So I tried to just, I was like, I wanted to try it because I wanted to have a more visionary experience. And by God, I did. I smoked some of the leaf and I took a couple hits, and it was kind of like the effects of quitting it and just taking a few hits from the leaf culminated into me flying into this light out of my body. I like saw my room just like collapse in front of me, and it was really scary. It was almost like it felt like I was dying because I was leaving this realm completely. I was actually leaving this realm, and it was the first time that I'd ever done that. And I was like, "Holy shit, what is going on?" And there were these prisoner guard people, and they came over to me, and there was like this factory, and they were like, "You're coming with me." And I thought in my head, okay, I can't be scared. Like, I need to like stay calm. They just want me to be scared. And right as I thought they just want me to be scared, it definitely got less scary. And then I asked the guards, "What do you guys do at the factory?" or something. And then I turned into an arrow, and I flew onto a board of other spinning arrows, and I flew around in this colorful pattern of arrows. And we were all like screaming and like, "Wow, like what's going on?" And there were other arrows, and it seemed like they were like other souls that had been like doing salvia or something, and they were on the board. And then like I opened my eyes, and my stomach turned into the door handle, and I was just like, what the hell just happened? It was half the most terrifying thing that had ever happened to me and half the most cool thing that had ever happened to me. And that was like just confirmation for me that my soul is not a part of my body.
Yeah. Yeah. And like your consciousness and stuff is not, yeah, it can span dimensions.
Yeah, and it was just really weird how real it felt in a different reality. Like it just felt like a different place, and that was like the first time that had ever happened to me. I don't really want to do it again, but I'm glad I did it that one time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, salvia is something that I need to explore again at some point, but I'm, well, kind of like what you said, I'm half terrified of it, but half very interested in it.
Yeah, it's a very weird it's a very weird thing. I heard you saying that when you did it, you did 20x or something, and just the candle stopped moving or something.
Yeah, my vision just turned into a still frame. Like my hands would move, but like everything was still, and it looked like a painting. And like I was like I remember reaching out to see because it looked like it was textured like a oil, like a canvas painting. And I was like, it was weird. It like I couldn't feel it, but I also couldn't interact with like my field of vision. Like it was like I was just staring at a paused television screen. But there was no other entities or anything, that was just a weird body buzz and a peculiar vision. But nothing, I didn't leave anywhere. I possibly just interrupted the space-time continuum. I'm not real sure, but yeah, my uncle, who I trust, his experiences and what he would say. And I mean, he's a psychiatrist. So like, I don't think he would be full of shit, but, he said at a party, that him and my aunt were at, that that he did salvia. And, I imagine he was smoking it. He didn't say what, but I would think that's what he was doing. And he like blacked out, to where, he was like laying back, with his eyes closed, my aunt said, and that he seemed like he was very distressed, and she was like kind of like worried or whatever. But in his consciousness was that he like woke up and he was in a diner eating dinner with like people he didn't know, but like had memories of there, but then was like, I was at a party with my wife, but I do remember being in this diner and like they were like, what are you talking about? You like fell asleep against the window or something like that. And he felt like he was there for like an entire meal and then came to, and my aunt said that, it was like less than 10 minutes that he was like out. But yeah, but he said like he could not tell if he was supposed to be in that diner or back at the party, but he remembered both lifetimes.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only had like one other experience like that where it felt like I was in a different place, and that was like I talked to like elves one time on 5 grams of mushrooms, and it definitely felt like I was in a different realm for sure. It's weird how it can definitely take you to different places.
Yeah. It's the one of the biggest things that intrigues me about life is how certain chemicals can make that experience happen, but so when you said you did heroic dose, like you meant by yourself in silent darkness?
Well, I don't know. I've kind of classified heroic dose as just doing 5 grams. I didn't do it in silent darkness. I don't know if that's a part of it, but I would count it as a heroic dose for me, at least, if it's 5 grams. But I did 5 grams. I've done it 4 times, and the last time was my most like successful experience, because I feel like I almost feel like you have to do 5 grams a few times to like get your footing in the realm, or at least that's how I felt. Because at first, it was the first time I did it, it was just so bizarre, I couldn't even understand it in any way. And so I did it again a week later, and I had a better experience. And then I waited a very long time to do 5 grams again. And that's when I had that experience with the crow. If you wanted me to go into that right now.
Absolutely.
So I did 5 grams of mushrooms during the day this time. Just, I don't know why. I just wanted to do it during the day. Like, the dark kind of freaked me out. Like, I didn't want to be alone in the night all night. So I was like, I'll just do it in the day in my house alone where there's sun, and I'll put on some music and it'll be fun. Well, like after I come down and stuff, after I come down a little bit, I was just going to stay in the house, which didn't at all go how it went. But I did the mushrooms. I ate 5 grams, and I was just laying down in my bed. And it started with this idea that I needed to kill all the negative energy inside of myself. So I just started doing like kung fu moves and spinning around on my bed, like imagining that there was negative energy, and I was like just hiya, like kicking the shit out of myself. And I was like having a great time doing that. And then I was like spinning around, and I heard this crow cry from above my trailer. And I have this deathly fear of birds. Like I cannot handle birds. They freak me out really bad. But I was like, I knew that this was like the time when I had to face this fear, I guess. Like, I wanted to face the fear. I was like, this is my time to face my fear of birds, I guess. And then I like looked up at my ceiling, and I talked to the crow. I was like, okay, crow, like, I trust you. Just please don't fucking do anything bad. Like, please don't hurt me. I don't want to like mess with you. I just want to learn from you. And it felt like this crow kind of hopped down into my room and started like picking these negative things out of myself. And I feel like it did something. Like it realized something within me. And that's when it kind of planted this lesson, I think, in me. So later in the trip, when I was home, I heard a car crash outside of my house. Like a really loud car crash that sounded really rough. I would have gone out and helped, but I was on 5 grams of mushrooms, so I just stayed in my house. And I thought to myself, man, I really need to be thankful for everything I have. I need to be thankful for my girlfriend and myself and my house. Like, I need to just be thankful, because I had been kind of going through this phase of um, the grass is always greener on the other side phase. I was kind of just not satisfied and always looking into the future. And I kind of just got this message to be grateful for everything. And I kind of forgot about it. Like, it wasn't that crazy. It was a pretty cool lesson, but like nothing, like it wasn't the most profound thing from that whole trip. And then a week later, me and my girlfriend are riding to work. I'm all like freaking happy riding to work, and I look in front of me. My girlfriend, we were at this crosswalk, and the lights were blinking, and there were already cars stopped, and this one car didn't stop and completely trucked her, and she did a front flip and flew like 15 feet down the road, and I thought she was dead for sure. But the thing that saved her life was the bike that was on her left side. And I mean, I am almost positive she would have been dead or a vegetable if that bike wasn't on her left side. And I just thought she was dead, and it was really crazy because I thought about the car crash from before on that mushroom trip, and I was just like, what's going on right now? Like, what is the universe trying to teach me? Because my girlfriend didn't die, and but we still had this terrible thing to go through of like medical bills and rehabilitation. And at the time, I didn't know she was going to be better. Like, I thought she might have had brain damage or something. So I was like freaking out. And the thing that really kept me strong through the whole thing is that experience, and the message of be like grateful for everything you have, because it can get taken away in a second. And I just decided that I wasn't going to be spiteful or hate the universe. I was going to learn from that experience and take what maybe the crow taught me. I don't know why it feels like the crow taught me that, but it and take it to heart and just be grateful for every moment and try and just get through this with the best attitude. And 2 months later, the universe, we got some help from family, and the universe got us through it. We're totally fine. And she just started walking today. So I just think being grateful is really what got me through that, instead of being hateful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, I mean, I'm glad to hear, she's okay. That's, and sorry you guys had to go through that, but I'm glad you have the right outlook, and you're right. Gratitude and being appreciative of the time you have with your loved ones is like the most important thing in life, like one big message I got from a mushroom trip one time that I've totally tried to incorporate into my life is like, nothing leading up to this moment was guaranteed, and nothing after it is guaranteed either. Like there's, you can point to a million things in your life that could have went one way or the other that could have led to any of us not being here. The fucking planet being here in the first place, it was not guaranteed, obviously, and it's amazing, and we should be grateful for that, and that's much like you said, the our culture that doesn't appreciate being open with our emotions. Our culture also it doesn't appreciate people appreciating it, and that it's like you're just supposed to fucking just shut up, go to work, shut the fuck up. Say, put your money away. Give your money to this guy. He's going to put it in a fund, and that's what you do. And then shut up. We'll give you a Super Bowl once a year. Drink beer, and like that's our culture. and it's when you stop, and that's what I think is so important about meditation and yoga and stuff like that. That I'm glad that that's what they're teaching kids out in the woods. In the therapy and stuff like that, is like it makes you stop, and as you try to chase your thoughts away and be in the moment, that's when you start to appreciate it. It's like you have to get the bullshit out of the way. You have to get everyone else's negative energy and the hurry that everyone wants to make everyone else be in and all that stuff. Once you get rid of that, it's almost like gratitude is a universal energy almost. And to be grateful is not just to do something, it's to be in tune with something. And like, I don't know, that's what I've been feeling in my life, is the more you're in tune with that energy that we can call gratitude, the more everything falls into place for you, and the more you feel like you're in the right place at the right time and stuff like that.
Yeah, it just feels like the more humble you are, it's like just the better you're going to be. Like the more, I don't know, in tripping, I just feel like the more humble I am, the less potential I have of having a bad trip, the less potential I have of having a bad day, and just the less potential for bad if I'm grateful for everything.
Yeah. No. And it's, I wanted to like talk about your premonition too with that experience, because, I don't know how much have you listened to Paul Stamets, the mycologist?
A decent amount, not that much, just like a little bit from his, like snippets from his talks and Joe Rogan.
Yeah. I think it was on Joe Rogan where he was talking about where he had a premonition of like all these thousands of dead cattle, and that he saw, on a mushroom trip. And he was like, God, what the hell was that vision that I saw? And then he was like, what was that? And then like, I can't remember what he said, like a couple months later or something like that, there was like, I think a flood. There was some sort of natural disaster that killed all these cattle, and he saw it on TV, and it was the exact same vision that he saw from the mushrooms. And I mean, it was the exact same thing. And so I've never experienced that, but I've kind of had this idea, for a while, that like, that's what deja vu is almost, is like premonitions that just kind of like, we came up with some, term for it, and just like, oh, I just had a case of deja vu, but it's like, it feels for a second like you're tripping, and like, I wonder if it's like a little like squirt of that, DMT that's in our pineal gland or whatever. And like, and you're kind of into that state, and there's something timeless, the timelessness or whatever that you can experience with psychedelics. If all three of those things, like timelessness, deja vu, and premonitions, are like kind of all part of the same thing, it's just, they all feel the same, and I don't know, it's interesting to think about with like, why would mushrooms do that and make you have that feeling and that vision?
Yeah, that makes me think about like Central American cultures and how obsessed they were with the future and predicting the future. And I mean, I'm pretty sure there's mushrooms around there that they ate.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's why, like, they're so obsessed with like the end of the world and like satisfying these gods with these crazy things, and like they're so concerned about predicting the future. Like maybe they're all just tripping balls building those temples. Who knows?
Well, yeah, Stan and I talked about that in our last podcast. Like, I definitely think they were tripping balls building temples.
Yeah, that's what, listening to that podcast, I started listening to Fingerprints of the Gods, and I've been listening to all this crazy stuff about the Egyptians and Aztecs and Mayans and all that.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about that, where it's even though I want to believe Graham Hancock that there was, well, I don't know if I want to believe, but I mean, I could believe, that there was cultures before us that were just as technologically advanced, and that there was something that took them out. But I also think that they were more psychedelic, in that I think psychedelics make you think bigger than yourself. And that would make you think about the future and taking care of the future, that like it humbles you in that moment and is like, wow, this is bigger than me. Whatever this is, it's way bigger than me, and I think if a culture has that as their like main, thing, they're going to be obsessed with the future and trying to, make something better for the future, to where our non psychedelic culture, everything is about making it better for you, for the individual,
Yeah, totally. And that, I mean, we're kind of, I don't know, if we're going off track, but this just made me think about something, that made me think about a DMT trip of like, maybe when you're tripping on, I don't know, I've never had this really on mushrooms, but on DMT at least, I've had full blown visions of cities and aliens, and like it feels like I've seen cities in the future or something. And I almost think that those aliens that we see, the ones with the big black eyes and the green head, like maybe that's just us in the future, because I've seen DMT realms of like these aliens walking around in these cities with mushrooms sprouting out of them and these crazy flying machines. And I wonder if when people smoked DMT back then, were they having visions of us? Or like, I wonder if they were having visions of us, or were they seeing the same alien realm that I'm seeing, or what?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about that. That's weird.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's again, it leads to that, like, we use the term dimension, right? For like the DMT dimension, the mushrooms took me to another dimension, but you're right. Maybe it's taking you to another time, and that, yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about like theoretical physics and what, time waves and gravity and all that it's like mixed together. And I probably throw a lot of terms out there that don't really go together, but, maybe time is a plane and you can travel along it. It's just not a physical plane. So you have to go there with your consciousness and your spirit or your soul or whatever. And it's possible that, these substances alter your, disconnect that from your physical body. Except because you're not dead, you get to come back. I've kind of thought about that sometimes too.
Yeah, I've definitely had moments where it feels like I'm going into the past. Like I've had one of my 5 gram mushroom trips was just, the theme of it was ancient monkeys. That was the entire theme. I felt like an ancient monkey. It felt like I was some kind of part of some ancient shamanistic monkey tribe. Like, and I wonder if I went back in time or something.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I mean, it's possible. The stoned ape theory, right, with Terrence McKenna. Well, we picture monkeys like picking up, a mushroom and then like having thoughts and making fire and whatever. And then we like think of cavemen, right, as the next step. But there's like tens of thousands of years or something in there of like a period where it was kind of like Planet of the Apes or something, like there was like, they didn't physically change into Homo sapiens yet, but maybe mentally they were. And they were, yeah, like ancient monkeys, but that was like the start of humanity, and maybe these mushrooms help us remember that part. Maybe those, I don't know. And Graham Hancock talks about this book, The Cosmic Serpent, all the time, and it talks about DNA and stuff like that. It's a really trippy book, and there's so much about our DNA they don't understand, and they kind of theorize that our DNA is basically like recording, like a recording, and that psychedelics help us go within. Maybe they help us go so far within that we can read back the recording of that's been being written generation after generation since there's been human DNA, and that what we call junk DNA is actually information, and that we're kind of turning our brain into, in the psychedelic state, we're turning our brain into like the playback of that, you know.
Yeah, totally. I've wondered about that too. Like it almost feels like it makes sense that if the universe is infinite and there's no beginning and end, there's an endless amount of time for every scenario to play out. So every technological sci-fi crazy thing we can imagine, I kind of think that it might happen somewhere, because that's what it feels like on mushrooms. It feels like the past opens up infinitely and the future opens up infinitely, and it just comes around into one big circle, and it just kind of loops back around into this giant hero's journey or something.
So you've had some videos on your YouTube channel talking about that. So is that what you would call the multiverse then?
Yeah, like that giant circle of everything happening. I felt like when I was on mushrooms, like I was being pulled through that giant loop of existence, like that we all go through. And it's super weird, because like I wonder, do you always have to go through something bad? Like, is there always a bad part that's gonna come because the good can't last forever? And that's almost what it seems like. That's kind of like what it seems like, the message I got. There's always going to be something to fight against, or a challenge. And that's kind of what it felt like during the trip. Like I would go through this hell realm and totally know that I was going to come out on the good side, so it didn't freak me out or anything. And it was super weird. Like it was this really crazy heroic journey loop that I was in the universe. And I don't know if that's actually how it is, but that's just kind of how it seemed when I was in it, at least.
Yeah. Well, and I know that, there's that kind of theory out there that, everything that could happen has in a separate timeline,
Well,
just
sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, it's hard to like fathom that, because like there's matter and energy in the universe, right? And it's like, did the matter duplicate and go on that other timeline, or is matter not part of time and gravity? Or it's like I don't know enough about physics to understand how that theory is valid.
It just kind of seems like time isn't real. Like time only feels real when you're an observer. Like maybe like when you do mushrooms, your ego dies, so you stop being the observer and you become the universe. Like, I don't know, like you can see how everything is playing out without a timeline all the time. Like it almost felt like there was no time. Like it just like everything that I wanted to happen or didn't want to happen was happening in that exact moment. It was super weird.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. So I guess that's like, if the ego is put on pause, at least not even dead, and there is no observer, then who's observing it? It's kind of like if a tree falls in the forest, did it make a sound kind of thing? It's like, what is there to observe if there's nobody observing it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really trippy thing that I start to think about. Like, yeah, that gets really trippy, because you just start thinking about death and stuff, and like you think, like, do I just turn into everything, or do I turn into another ego? Do I because you're pretty much confined to an ego if you're in a body, whether you like it or not. And I wonder, like, do you go to another ego, or what? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because we will get to a point, and the not too distant future, to where, I mean, I think there's already companies planning this to where you can take AI software and upload every video, every audio clip that's ever been made of a loved one, say your dad dies or something, and make an AI can make a complete like person to interact with, like not to touch or anything, but you could get like a Skype call from your dead dad, and they would answer questions the way they would, sound the way they did, look the way they did, have the same mannerisms, react the same way, to where, like, and so is that a consciousness, or is that what we are in the first place? Like are we a walking version of that, to where there's once you take that out of the equation, what are we? Are we any different from whatever that software is that they're going to have in the future?
Yeah.
Or has enough time passed that that's absolutely what we are? That whatever, we're just computers that are on a auto run program. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know. It's crazy. Like, I just kind of think about universal laws sometimes. Like with the hero's journey, it almost feels like a universal law, and kind of karma too. And I had like a pretty cool story that I wanted to tell you guys about karma that I think you would like.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Oh my gosh, this is like the craziest story to me. So, I knew this guy. He had DMT. He would like, I don't know what his deal was. He would just like go around town with DMT in his backpack, and like he would just like sell it to people, because I guess he was just trying to help people out. I don't know what his deal was, but he was a cool guy, and he had DMT in his backpack, and he said that he got it stolen from somebody, and he realized that the DMT in it was in this little wax container that looked like a THC container. And they thought, and it looked like, it completely looked like wax, that you would smoke out of like a dab rig or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's karma right there. Because whoever stole that bag and thought, oh yeah, this is totally wax right now, that was probably karma. Like, I just feel like there's these universal laws that, and it's kind of comforting to know that everything kind of works out in funny ways like that.
Yeah. Someone did a big nail rig of DMT.
Yeah. Like, I don't know who it was, but I just imagine that guy, whoever did that, like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's another substance that I've talked to plenty of people that have done it. I've never done it. I probably will at some point, but again, I'm half terrified of it and half intrigued by it,
I feel like the deal with DMT is you really just have to be calm going into it. That's like kind of what I've learned, is the more calm you go into it, the better it is, because you're switching dimensions so fast that your mood doesn't really change. Like, if you're already terrified, you're still going to be terrified, it seems like to me.
Mm-hmm.
Just some advice. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's see. Did you have any other stories? I can't remember.
I don't know. We kind of didn't talk too much about the meditation and yoga at Wilderness Therapy. If you guys wanted to go into that and like the benefits of doing 9 weeks of meditation and yoga every single day for 20 minutes.
Yeah,
definitely.
That, like, I just feel like, I don't know, like, do you guys meditate and do yoga every day still? Like, how do you feel like it helps you doing it alone? Because doing it in a like public situation with a bunch of other people was like something that was super awesome and helped a ton.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I have been trying to do it every day and just focusing on essential points being my voice and like a mantra. And I haven't been doing it every day. I've been trying, so probably maybe like 3 out of 7 days of a week, which I think is pretty good for, just starting out. And, it definitely helps. It definitely helps. Whenever, my mind's all over the place, whatnot, and I need to focus on the task at hand, or just like focusing on whatever I'm doing is really the challenge. Yeah. And it really, the second day I did it, we talked about this a little bit beforehand, but the second day I did it, I did like 25-30 minutes on, like after smoking like a blunt of 28% THC weed, and went super deep. And it almost like it was like I was transported to the root of a lot of my issues, which was a lack of focus. And coincidentally, meditation helps with the focus. But I would be interested in trying it in a group setting. I am a bit scared, because it is kind of such an honest representation of your like individual self, that it's kind of intimidating to do in a group setting. But yeah.
Huh. Yeah, that's awesome. Just because ever since wilderness therapy, I feel like I haven't really been able to like reap the benefits from it without doing it in a like a group setting. Just like I hear like you guys talking about trying to do meditation by yourself every day, and
Mm-hmm.
getting into that state like you talked about, where you go to the root of your problems. And that's definitely how it would be for me in the situation when I just had all the support of everyone else. And
Mm-hmm.
it was just like, I feel like maybe it was that thing you were talking about, like being vulnerable actually made it like work better, like being your honest self around other people and not just alone in your house. I think that might have actually like helped a lot, now that you say that, because
Certainly, yeah.
I could see how just like learning to be your authentic self around other people in like such an open state could definitely help with the therapy.
Yeah, I had a pretty good meditation regimen going on, and then work, I just started working so much and stuff, and I also was like going to the gym a lot too, and both of those things have been on the back burner for a couple months, and I miss the meditation the most. It helped me at the very least, even if I didn't get to any sort of deep state, just having that regimen helped like me not feel as like rushed, and it's a double whammy because I haven't been meditating and I've been super busy. And so like the combination of that is I feel like super rushed. I feel like, everything on my calendar is like a pain in the ass and it's getting in my way, to where when I was taking 20-30 minutes a day to lay down and focus on my breathing at the very least, I was getting into kind of, humming, doing like and kind of holding a vibration, having 30 minutes a day by myself is more it resets your brain more than like anything else I would have be part of a daily regimen, and just make it like it just takes the hurry out of everything for like the rest of the day. You're like, okay, and then I'm going to tackle these things instead of feeling like everything's piling on top of you. It's like, nope, I took my time to be in the moment. Now I'm going to figure out what's most important and what I'm going to do first here, and not having that's what I've noticed is like, I feel like everything's piling on top of me and I'm not getting anything accomplished, so at the very least, if it's not spiritual or anything like that, I think it's important to have that be part of someone's day, but like, it's hard. It's easy for me to say that, but I'm also living proof that that's easier said than done, because like I'm trying to figure out, how I can schedule that in. That was easy for me to do when I was a stay-at-home dad and my kids were at school and I would meditate, to where now it's like I don't know when I'm going to fit that in, but I need to figure that out, because I do miss it. It was a super important part of my daily routine.
Yeah, I totally understand how you feel. Like it's hard to get it in. I almost feel like doing it for 9 weeks and doing it consistently for 9 weeks just helped me a ton be able to just try and have this like life meditation where I'm like trying to almost practice that meditation like constantly, like trying to like just ward off my thoughts. And I go definitely in and out of that practice of being able to like completely warn off some of my thoughts, and then sometimes they just overwhelm me. And I think having like something like dance, or I mean I skateboard, just things like things that put you in the flow state is like it's almost better than meditation for me. Like when I skateboard, like it's like I'm not thinking, like I get to the exact place that I want to go when I'm meditating just by riding around on my skateboard.
Yeah.
I have the same exact experience with playing basketball, like just shooting around. I think like having some task where your body can kind of just go autopilot, and for me it's almost as if like my mind is thinking of everything and nothing at the same time. That's when I'm just like coasting and I'm hitting the shots that I'm shooting, and time goes by so fast then, and when you're out of it you're like, wow, that was great. But it whenever I like fall out of that, like I try to play basketball every day just as an exercise, and whenever I'm in the middle of it, and I get down on like missing a shot, or I guess for skateboarding it could be like not hitting a trick or just like something along those lines, I just to reconnect with my body again, I'll think heel foot. I'll think about each step I'm taking, and the jump that I'm taking, the muscles that it's hitting, and eventually that progresses into the point that I'm back into that flow state for me.
Yeah, I totally know what you mean. And like you said, like when you get knocked down, that's like another thing with doing something every day that helps a lot with like getting into that meditative state, is like having to like work for that, like getting knocked down and like getting your ego checked sometimes, just like it helps you like flex that muscle of like being able to kick in the flow state. I don't know, like being able to get back into that rhythm is really good for just everyday life when you're at work and there's like 15,000 things you got to do and people are yelling at you and like you got a million things. It definitely helps to like having those experiences to pull from in the stressful parts of your day, because the more you can pull from that, like the better your day is, and then the better your life is, I think.
Yeah. A big thing that was passed on to me from an old buddy of mine was just the practice of meditation in everyday life. And I guess I didn't really know what it meant until I started practicing it myself. And, it could be, I mean, shit, I could use this podcast as an example. Your mind can wander. I can think about fantasy football or, whatever else is going on in my life. But as long as whenever that happens, I remind myself, hey, I'm on the line with two other human beings and we're all having a great like conversation and coming together. That's when it kind of kicks back in and starts rolling again, And it's just like, it's like fighting against the distracted mind. And that's why I thought like focus is the root of my problems and a lot of other people's problems, I think, because you can be so unfocused that all of a sudden you're depressed, or, you could be so unfocused that not paying attention to what's going on can cause you sadness, anxiety, worry, all of that. And that can manifest other issues. And that's why when I said like just going to the root of it, being focused, I think is very, very key. And I hope that people, can resonate with that for sure.
Yeah. And just, it doesn't make it any easier that in this society, nobody really wants you to be that awake, you know what I mean? Like that happy. Like nobody really wants, like the government really doesn't seem like they want you to be that happy. Like doesn't feel a lot of times like everybody really cares about your goals and your wants and your needs. And I think meditation, it's good to take that moment to think about all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think focus is like the, kind of the key component to success. And like you were saying that, there's definitely a segment of culture and society that doesn't want us to be awake. Well, they don't want us to be focused because that's how you be successful. If you look at social media or just media in general, like they want to harbor feelings in us that we're not good looking enough or not rich enough or not good enough to be successful. That like, look at these people, these are the successful people and look how sexy they are or whatever, and that they're successful people of all different types. The key thing that binds them together is they were focused on what they wanted to do.
Yep. Well, and the other side of the coin of that is, distraction. And that is the hottest thing being sold right now through the social media and through, what you were describing of not feeling good enough or not thinking that you're attractive or whatever. The root of all of that is just distraction.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you combat that with focus, and then, you try to, I'm saying like it's easy. It's definitely not
no,
easy.
It's not.
But,
yeah.
But that's how you combat the distraction is, delete Twitter off your phone. And whenever the feeling of wanting to check Twitter comes up, you remind yourself of what you're doing in the moment, and it's just like this ongoing process.
Yeah. I wouldn't totally blame Twitter and stuff like that and like the internet. It's making it worse for sure, but that's always, it's always kind of been there, because I was thinking about that, with my job, and like, I'm really happy with it. And I think, it falls in line with like everything I've done. But I was like looking back at like my career path as a mess, because like every time I reached some sort of struggle in whatever I was choosing to do, I just got distracted and started something else. It's like I wanted to, the first time I went to college, I wanted to be, in radio and I went to vocational school for radio, TV broadcasting. And then as soon as that got tough in college, and it was like, actually, I want to cook. Yeah, I want to be a chef. I want to go to culinary school, and it was like, as soon as like applying for that got tough, then I was like, I'm going to play in a band, and it was like, I just always got distracted and just went down another path, and like never really, I just kept looping back around to the pick your own path part of life, and that was without having a cell phone, that was like, I was still just as easily distracted and lacked focus. And because of that, lacked success and just did nothing, then like, it wasn't until, honestly, till I got married and had kids and was forced to like focus and forced to, start something and finish it and see it through, that, I would have anything that I would consider success, and so like, I think that's just that's like a, distraction and lack of focus is just like a human, flaw, characteristic. And it's just something, but it is the internet and social media and notifications on phones that are in your pocket. Like, that's just making it so much worse and so much faster, just like everything else,
Yeah. But what you said is key too, which I didn't bring up, was just like you said, it's just part of being human. And even if you didn't have the phone, or even if you're good at, being disciplined with, phone usage, you can still easily be distracted and, in your own life. And your story about, changing career paths and changing what you thought was a focus, I'd resonate with that completely, man. And I guess it really just comes down to like choosing one I guess, and dedicating yourself to it, right?
Well, it's not even that. It's embracing a challenge. Much like Will's nature therapy. Like if they didn't challenge those kids, then they're just camping. And like you have to break them down and build them back up in order to get the therapy out of it, and you have to make them challenge themselves and have to have them fight through the challenge and then come out of that side with the confidence in themselves. And so no matter what you do choose, hopefully people can always follow their heart, but that's not always the case. Some people do have to be like, well,
yeah,
I think I'd be a good lawyer, so I guess I'm going to do that. But it's like, they're not going to be a good lawyer and they're not going to finish law school if the first test that's really hard or the first thing that's really hard, they just go, fuck being a lawyer, And so like, that's the thing is like, it's easy to give up. It's easy to quit. That's the other thing about being human is you can always just be like, oh, fuck it, whatever, and so like, you don't have to choose just one thing. Like you can be a multifaceted person and be into a bunch of different things. But the key, is to focus on getting through the challenge because nothing's going to be easy without a challenge, or nothing, no path in life is just going to be a stroll in the park,
Yeah. And that's just like, with basically every mushroom trip, like there's always a part that's hard. And if you really want to get something out of it, you got to embrace that hard part for sure. And, going back, you guys were talking about celebrities for a second and like how, and like rich people and how people society wants to make us like jealous of those people pretty much. Mushrooms have really shown me like, literally shown me like when I'm on Instagram on mushrooms, like seeing the celebrities, like how unhappy they are. Like I see how like really money doesn't make you happy. Like you're still going to be the same person even though you have everything you want. Like mushrooms have really showed me that you have to be happy just being you, and that's really what matters, because like all that stuff is just an illusion. And I feel like I always thought that when I was younger, but mushrooms have just really really brung it home in like a whole new, more profound way.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
No, that's I know a couple that's, very close to me that they have more money than I would know what to do with and shouldn't have any problems in the world, but they fucking hate each other's guts, and I mean, it's, it makes, yeah, it is. And, it makes my wife and I, when we talk about them that, we're like, well, we don't, we're not struggling, but we don't have everything we could want for sure, and we just get by but whatever, but like, we couldn't imagine living without each other, so like, that's more, it's more valuable, and there's so many famous people that like, they could have everything, money and possession wise, but like, because they're an actor or whatever, like their whole, what people think of them is completely fake, and all of their relationships are based around that, and so like, I could see that. Yeah, they're super unhappy, a lot of them.
Yeah, I've had it on mushrooms where I'm just looking at them like, and like I'm seeing hallucinations of just them like sad facing and crying, and like it's just so funny like how clear it all is and how like silly it all gets when you start like doing mushrooms. And it definitely like helps just bring that focus and like help you have the realization that you're not a shitty person if you don't have $1 million, or you're not a like shitty person if you're not like have an hourglass body or a super chiseled body. Like they give you the realization that like you're a divine being from like Terrence McKenna says, you're a divine being from like different realms, and you'll go back to those realms. Like that's definitely how it felt on 5 grams of mushrooms. And it sounds really like hippie and woo woo, but when you have that experience to pull back from, it's super profound, like so profound you almost want to cry, because you realize your power, and that is something that everybody really needs to learn. And I think the idea of shamanism and the shaman is those people realize their power and they're using their power. And I think that we're all shamans, and it's just a lie from society that we aren't our true divine selves. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. Like, that's the best way to, control a civilization, is to, make them think they can't do any better,
Yeah, and mushrooms really show you just how much better we can be doing. You know what I mean? Like with what we're eating, and like how we're treating ourselves and how we're treating others and the planet and all that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a question about one of your videos, or actually two of your videos, regarding like the hallucinating on smoking weed. And I just wanted to get, I guess, more of your take on that subject. I feel like it's not really a commonly spoke of theory or idea. And I definitely, I probably can't say that I've, hallucinated per se, but I've definitely entered like the psychedelic realms through THC, specifically smoking cannabis. And one of the things you mentioned too was that how profound it is post cracking your mind open with, a psychedelic of some sort. And I just wanted to, I guess, just hear more of your take on all that.
Well, okay. So one time on this, on my second 5-gram mushroom trip, I don't know if I was looking in the mirror or if I just had this vision right in front of me, but I saw this vision of myself with my third eye just completely popping out of my forehead, like HD popping out of my forehead. And at the time, it totally was normal. Like I was on 5 grams, third eye's popping out. It wasn't like I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just felt totally normal. And ever since then, it feels like my third eye has been opened, and I'm like open to this visionary realm of imagination, because maybe it's because I've tripped and my imagination is more enhanced. I don't know, but it feels like when I smoke weed, I can visualize the most insane art piece of the century in my head, like, and I can see it in my head because of kind of cracking my third eye open. And I think if I had the awareness of that before I did psychedelics, like if I had the awareness that I can hallucinate on weed, I can see whatever I want to see with this little reality shift, that is like that. It's changed weed for me a lot, tripping. Like it can almost get a little bit too intense sometimes if I get too high, because
Same.
I've been able to I can like access the realms. Like when I'm high now, it's like completely like I can do it, you know what I mean? And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like some kind of crazy magic in your head, and you just really have to be like open to it. At least that's what it feels like for me. And I feel like acid kind of makes, I feel like acid especially, maybe more than mushrooms or any other substance, acid makes smoking weed afterwards a lot more trippy, at least in my experience.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like way more trippy. Like if you smoke the next day, like I've seen auras and stuff the next day. And just a warning for people out there, I kind of duped myself into thinking I had HPPD for a second, because I'm a stoner. Like I smoke a lot of weed, and when I was tripping, I started smoking weed, and it started to get to the point where every time I smoked, I was like almost in this tripping state. So I had to take a break off of weed because it was just getting too weird for me. But I just think like weed is such a underestimated psychedelic. Like once you've meditated or had a big psychedelic experience, like you can do a lot in just being high on weed, I think.
Yeah. No, definitely. And what you said about HPPD, I definitely understand that too. And taking a break from weed, I've almost sounds like I've done all of that too. So it's good to hear that, you're not the only one,
Yeah, I think HPPD isn't talked about as much, just because people want to talk about all the good things. But I think with acid in particular, it's like, I want to just shout out that you shouldn't take acid maybe every week, because I've done that, and it can get you into some weird places. If you're like a stoner, it can get you into some weird places that you don't really want to be in. And I think that we just need to let people know that with acid and smoking weed, like there's a correlation there, and to just be careful, you know what I mean? But it can be also really cool. Like it can also be like, it can like it sometimes. Right now it feels like I don't even need to eat a gram of mushrooms. Like I could just eat a bunch of edibles and smoke some weed, and I'd be at the same spot pretty much. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, definitely.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're at like an hour and a half, man, so we can wrap it up. But it was awesome talking to you. You're wise beyond your years, and I totally think that could be accredited to your wilderness experience. And I wish that was something that was available for everybody, and and that people at least tried to get a piece of that, and learn what you learned. And yeah, I'm glad you're grateful for that. And I mean, it definitely sets you up to have a bright future ahead of you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. And what's your YouTube channel, if you want to plug that real quick?
It's called Psychedelic Missionary.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll put
I'm also thinking about starting a podcast. I just ordered a microphone, so yeah, maybe I could have you guys on it someday if it works out.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as you were talking about not finding a psychedelic community to really talk about this stuff, like if I can give any advice for someone with a YouTube channel and going to start a podcast like you, it's like, just keep putting that beacon out in the universe, man, and be open to everyone that reaches out to you because of it, and just be patient, and it'll grow as fast as it's supposed to grow, and just keep pushing,
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice. I'll definitely do that.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, it was great talking to you, and yeah, we'll talk again sometime soon, man.
All right. Sounds good. See you guys later.
As always, thank you for listening to the Help Find the Others podcast. Please don't forget to check out our Discord server to connect with our growing community. The link to join can be found in the description. And if you feel like donating to our channel to help us grow, a link to our Patreon can also be found in the description, as well as some cryptocurrency wallet addresses. If you would like to be a guest on the podcast or have any questions about these topics, please email helpfindtheothers@protonmail.com. If you would like to leave a voicemail or a text message question for a future episode, Stan, what's that number again?
567-233-1335.
Okay, guys, thanks again. And until next time, let's help find the others.